What's up, family, and welcome back to the channel for another video. So glad that you're spending a little time with me today. This one might be a little short. I don't know. I say that, and then it never kind of goes that way. But I was kind of expecting this one to be short. But right when I was getting prepared to, well, come on and record this video, I got a message, and so. Um, and I got a conversation, so that's now kind of thrown me a little bit. It wasn't a bad conversation. It was actually a very great conversation, really good conversation, I'd say. I had a conversation with Jimmy Snow. I'd never had a conversation with Jimmy Snow before. Just had a conversation with Jimmy Snow today. And I'm like, and again, it's a great conversation. By the way, I will be on the line tonight, so come check that out. And tonight we'll be having some political discussions. And as you all know, I've dipped in that bag a few times, even though sometimes I think my opinions are not always popular. Um, but I think that's something that I may share with some of them. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so if you're not doing anything tonight, check it out. I'll be on the line. And then apparently you'll be seeing me on the line a little bit more. So more news to come. All right, if you haven't already, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that alert notification bell, consider joining, supporting, or connecting with this channel, community, or content in any way that actually makes sense to you. And then, of course, share this video with somebody because, that helps. And then last but not least, check out our products and our merch. We have really great books and we have really great merchandise. And then, of course, we have an event coming up in Raleigh in April. And Chris Mallard has joined the ticket, so this is going to be pretty damn awesome. The descriptions, the link is in the description below. All right, so this conversation we're having today is I kind of want to talk a little bit about the 7 types of atheism, which I know Bertrand Russell highlighted 7 types of atheism a while back, but apparently there's an author named John Gray who wrote a book about it, and so I wanted to kind of highlight these 7 types that he highlighted. And first, I'll just kind of walk through what John shared, which I think he did a podcast with Sam Harris a while back. He's definitely more of a philosophical type of person. So I'll read through what his thoughts were, and then I'll kind of share my thoughts at the end. All right. So he in this book he gives us 7 types of atheism. The first type is the militant atheist. This type of atheist is passionate about challenging religious beliefs, often adopting a confrontational stance toward religion. Um, Gray refers to figures like Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens as an example of militant atheists who argue that religion is harmful and it should be eradicated from public life. They advocate for a secular society and criticize religious institutions using reason and science as their main tools for undermining faith. I guess by that definition, I could also be considered a militant atheist. And I think some of my problems with this are probably going to be made clear fairly quickly, but we'll see. The second one is the secular humanist, right? Secular humanists reject religious beliefs but emphasize human reason and progress. They believe in the potential for human beings to shape a better world through science, rationality, and social cooperation. This type of atheist tends to be optimistic about human nature and often advocates for moral systems that are based on research rather than divine authority. All right, so I said I was going to share some of my thoughts closer to the end, and I still will, but this one is kind of it's unavoidable for me not to call out this first glaring problem, which I typically don't like lists like this. Period. 7 types of atheists. Yikes! I don't know if this is actually an academic endeavor, but the first one is because there is no line of delineation between the first one and the second one. The first one is militant atheist. The second one is secular humanist. These two things are not mutually exclusive. There's no contrast here. Um, they're literally the same thing. You know, they're literally the same thing, and so I don't always like when people try to lean into that typism or typography, typology, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Um, it's it screams fluff to me, but we'll see. The third one is the existential atheist. according to John Gray, which existential atheists, just such as Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus, argue that life is inherently meaningless and that it's up to individuals to create their own purpose. They reject any religious or metaphysical meaning and focus instead on individual freedom and responsibility in the face of an indifferent universe. This form of atheism emphasizes personal autonomy and the recognition of life's absurdity. Again, we're now at the third one, and there is still no contrast. None of these, there's the militant atheist, the secular humanist, and the existential atheist. All of these can be the same thing. All of these can literally be the same person. None of these are diametrically opposed to the other, which is why this type of list was a little odd for me. But we'll go on. The next one was the liberal atheist. Liberal atheists are often more accommodating toward religion and focusing on promoting tolerance and religious freedom. They don't necessarily seek to eradicate religion, but instead advocate for a pluralist society where different worldviews can coexist. Gray suggests that this type of atheism is often associated with liberal political ideologies that emphasize individual rights and freedoms, but that could also go in line with the secular humanist, because there are many secular humanists who would also fall into this category of being liberal atheists. That's literally why you have the universal, Unitarian folks. That's why you have the UUs. Many of them are the liberal atheists. So I don't, you know, like this type of stuff is pretty much it's stuff that I'm used to preachers doing. And so watching people do this and kind of try to pass it off as, and I don't want to say it like that because I don't know, maybe, again, I'm just looking at the types. I have not jumped into this book in deep detail. I'm just looking at the types. But it is a little uncomfortable for me because it just seems like something that a preacher would have done, just these types, because again, okay. Number one, most of you know that I'm a pragmatist. So there's no utility in the way that he's set these types out. You know what I'm saying? But to be honest, that's kind of common among people who gravitate towards philosophy just for the sake of philosophy. They become people who just like to critique ideas. That's the whole goal, is just to critique the idea with no utility of what will change because you critique this idea. And so a lot of times people who lend themselves toward that philosophy sense, not saying all of them, but a lot of times people who lend towards that way, they just talk about a bunch of shit that's just absolutely useless. And so far, going through these types, and we've gone through 4 of them. We still got 3 more to get through. I haven't seen anything very revealing, nor have I seen anything that creates any type of contrast. But again, we have 3 more. So number 5 is the scientific atheist. He says the scientific atheist rejects religious claims on the basis of science and empirical evidence. Now, he used Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens in the militant atheists. But for whatever reasons, he considers people like Carl Sagan and Stephen Hawking, that they're the type of scientific atheist. So is Richard Dawkins not a scientific atheist? And that's the problem with these type of categorizations. They're ultimately meaningless. They have no real utility. This is like trying to create a conversation where this conversation actually creates nothing. So, but he says these people believe that science provides the most reliable understanding of the world. Scientific atheists view religious beliefs as outdated and irrational, offering a worldview grounded in observable facts and natural explanations. How is that different than what the militant atheist believes? How is that different than what the secular humanist believes? Do you see what I'm saying? Number 6, the Stoic atheist. Stoic atheism draws on ancient philosophical traditions such as Stoicism, which advocate for inner peace, self-control, and acceptance of the natural world without the need for a divine presence. Stoic atheists, like the philosophers of ancient Greece and Rome, focus on living in harmony with nature and culture and cultivating virtue. They reject supernatural explorations, but still value the human pursuit of moral excellence. And again, this is yet another one that doesn't stand in contradistinction to any of the other ones on the list. Like, so if I was in this class, I'd be raising my hands over and over again. Like, how is this one different than the one you just said? And if they're not that different, why do we actually need this typism, if you will? And so his seventh type of an atheist is the apophatic atheist. Maybe this will be his unique one. This is his own perspective to some extent. He argues that the divine is unknowable and that language itself truly cannot describe or understand the nature of existence. Then this is not atheism. This is agnosticism. You know? He says this atheism avoids specific doctrines or materialist views and instead focuses on the limits of human understanding. Apophatic atheism is closer to a form of mysticism in that it acknowledges the ineffable nature of reality, rejecting both religious claims and simplistic atheism. Okay, what he just described as an apophatic atheist, and I may be saying that wrong, well, whatever, is an agnostic. So like, and that was honestly my first thoughts after just kind of reading the review, is that, man, for somebody to be really, really educated, he doesn't seem to be able to grasp the very basics of the definitions of the words. And again, I have not read the book, so that may be an unfair assertion, you know. But those are definitely my first thoughts. Is that when you start talking about types of atheism, my mind immediately goes to, then you don't really know what atheism is. There are no types of atheism unless you're talking about what led people to the moment. And that's honestly what I thought this thing was going to go. This is the thing that leads somebody to their atheism, you know. So there are people who become atheists because they have bad experiences in the church. There are other people who become atheists because they discover that the Bible is untrustworthy. There are other people who become atheists because there are scientific things that they discover or explore or whatever. So that's where I thought they were going to go with this particular book, is because that's, in my mind, that's the only legitimate type of atheist that you could actually attach to it. Because the moment, like there's already a definition for atheists. There's already a definition. People who do not, or a person who does not believe in God, a person who does not ascribe to God belief. What other type of that is there? You see what I'm saying? And as I said, like, when you look at this, he goes through and says, no, there's this type and there's this type and there's this type, but none of these types are actually different or distinct from the other one. They're just all different things that he likes to focus on. So he likes to say that there's the militant atheist and then there's the secular humanist. But creating such typography then assumes that if you are a militant atheist, that you can't be a secular humanist. And I don't know, because all the ones that get categorized as militant atheists are militant not because of the religion, they're militant because of the harm to humans, which makes them a secular humanist. You know, so I don't know. You know, and I've noticed this a lot, that there seems to be a lot of pseudo academia in the academic community that other academics aren't able to recognize, or everybody's just platforming each other because it's the thing to do. Like, to this day, I don't understand how Jordan Peterson became as popular as he did. You know, but that's just me. It's just me. I mean, it could be because I'm black. You know, I don't know. I distrust him because I'm black. We'll go there. We'll leave it there. All right. So I do want to give a little bit of you know. So that was just kind of my like off the cuff critique. I do want to give a little critical critique. And he seems to predominantly focus on the intellectual history of atheism, focusing on historical and philosophical figures such as Sartre, Dawkins, and Hitchens. However, this approach largely ignores the ways in which atheism has functioned as a social and political movement, particularly in the 21st century. And let's just be honest, if you're not studying Dawkins, Hitchens, Sartre, Nietzsche, none of these people are representations of atheism. None of these people represent what it means to be atheist. They just so happen to be atheists. So you don't study atheism by studying the people that are important to you. That's not an academic pursuit. That feels more like, BET Hollywood News. Like, so because I mean that is like, and I don't know, like, man, maybe that's what I was about to say. That's an American thing, but I don't think John is American. I believe he's British. But it's just like this. To me, that's just a very that was a very. He says, I'm going to tell you the 7 types of atheism by only focusing on these very specific atheists. Like, that's not how you do that. So but he does seem to overlook the rise of secularism, global atheism, and the increasing political influence of atheist organizations, especially in Western countries. So this is kind of underexplored in his analysis. And by concentrating mainly on the philosophical musings, Gray actually misses the broader implications of atheism in contemporary society, how it impacts policy, human rights, and public discourse. And I do think that's one of the bigger issues, and I think that's one of the reasons why people like Jordan Peterson kind of get platformed as much as they do, because we allow so much of this conversation to go off in the philosophical realm, philosophical or metaphysical, and typically when we do that, we just give people permission to say whatever they want to say because, well, it's philosophy. It's like, well, no, well, if we're not talking about something that has pragmatic utility, why the fuck are we talking about it? You know, like this is how we keep creating talking heads that end up becoming people who are just spewers of poison, because at the end of the day, we were never really interrogating, the legitimacy of what they're saying. We have to be averse, in ourselves. We need to be averse to being followers and fans. You see, like, people will come on my stuff. It's like, what you just did really turned me off. Well, bitch, I'm not here to turn you on. I'm not looking for fans. I'm not looking for followers. I don't exist for you. I don't exist to make your day better. I am not your fucking genie. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not just saying that because I'm averse to it. I'm telling you that for you. That's for your health. We need to stop that shit because this thing has gotten so bad now. It's creeping over into our academia where we think this is academic research, that now studying atheism is studying the popular atheist. Like, what? No, that's from a sociological perspective. I am horrified that somebody thought that was proper research. I am. Like, what the fuck? No. Oh my God. I have so many thoughts. I have so many thoughts. Oh man. So and then he also, he really fails to address the growth of atheism in this, which I mean you can kind of see because his own view based off of these types is very myopic. But as atheism has gained prominence globally, particularly in the global south and in secular societies like Scandinavia, Gray overlooks how these growing movements challenge religious authority and offer a vision for secular, humanist, and egalitarian futures. His intellectual history, while rich, could have benefited from more of a contemporary lens that explores the way atheism is evolving and contributing to societal change. Um, and there are a few theoretical overreaches. I don't want to get too much into it, but I mean, it's most clearly seen when you're dissecting the motivations of atheists, especially those like militant or scientific. He seems to overlook the fact that rejecting religion doesn't always lead to moral or social clarity. He brushes past these ethical challenges and atheists that atheists face in constructing a moral framework without religion, assuming a kind of intellectual and moral superiority that doesn't fully align with the lived experience of those questioning faith. um which I do find odd. And the thing is, like, again, when you look at his definition of science, the people he put in the category of scientific atheists and the people he put in the category of militant atheists, they're not contradistinctive. Richard Dawkins, I get it, he's not a popular guy right now, I know, but Richard Dawkins would absolutely be considered not only a militant atheist but also a scientific atheist, but he would also be considered a secular humanist. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't. That's a problem for me. You know. But then there's also this, the apophatic trap. An acknowledgement of the ineffable nature of existence. However, his adoption of this perspective feels evasive, but it's more than evasive. It's flat out dishonest. There is no such thing as an apophatic atheist or apophatic or whatever, apophatic atheist. No. If you are a person who says I cannot know whether there is a God or not, you're not an atheist, you're an agnostic, you know? Now, if you're a person who says, I don't know that whether there's a God or not, and I don't believe there's a God, then you're an agnostic atheist. You know what I'm saying? But this dude I feel like he just created, he created this list just to be able to introduce that new term. Literally it. That's what I think. Um, I think I've already called out the problems with the categorization of it altogether, but atheism is not such a big thing that it needs to be categorized. Like I said, the only type of typology that I can see being added to atheism are the ways that people become atheists. And if that and I think if that would have been the approach, that would have been a much more interesting conversation. But he seems to be a part of the growing group of atheists who want atheists to just shut up and go back in the closet, you know? Um, and I'm sure there's some things going on there, Like I'm always positive. I'm one of those people, if it looks like a duck, talks like a duck, somebody's probably paying it to be a duck. You know what I'm saying? That's the way I think about that shit. But because when I look at this stuff, it seems very clear what the agenda is, and that's to paint a form of acceptable atheism and non-acceptable atheism seems to be the agenda here. And the acceptable is like that's why we're creating the nuances that no, there are the goal is to villainize the militant atheist. That's what it seems like. I mean, like to me, outside looking in, seems like the goal is to villainize the militant atheist because that word militant is a dog whistle word, right? It's one of those words that when it gets used, it's like the word nationalist. When the word nationalist gets used, it's a dog whistle word. There's never a time when you are using that word for the most part where you are not trying to invoke strong emotions. And so, like, people will do it to me all the time. When they hear some of my ideologies, they say, well, you sound like a nationalist. And I always remind them, well, we are all nationalists until we're globalist. Words have context, right? I don't have a problem with nationalism. I don't think it's a great thing. But every person who loves their fucking country is a nationalist. So when you use these words like this, in most cases, you're kind of being dishonest. You're just using them as a dog whistle word. Nobody's actually interrogating what is being said. This is one of the reasons why I am pretty decent in debates, because I actually listen to what the fuck people are saying and the words that they're using. But militant is another one of those dog whistle words. We say, oh, well, this person is militant. That means a bad thing. But what if you say this person is in the military? I mean, so you're okay with your country being militant? Like you see, it's dog whistle. So typically, I do pay attention to the choice of words, and so when I see that, and I'm like, nah, I kind of know what you're trying to do here. And again, I don't know John Gray, so I don't. I know the other John Gray. I know the black John Gray, who's the pastor who kept sleeping on his wife and buying her cars with the church money. But that's the one I know. But I will highlight this one, other one, because I think this is I'm gonna call it out, and then I'll kind of give the reason for it. But I think he has a lot of cultural and political blind spots, which I mean we all do, right? That's kind of my whole philosophy, my whole approach to life is that we're all the blind man touching the elephant. So we're gonna have to actually listen to other people about what they're experiencing. You know what I'm saying? Um, and so his analysis of atheism is heavily rooted in the Western intellectual tradition. He draws on philosophers like Sartre, Nietzsche, and Hitchens, whose influence is significant in Europe and North America, but does not adequately account for how atheism functions in other parts of the world, especially in non Western societies where atheism is often a reaction to authoritarianism or religious extremism or even oppressive political regimes. His book fails to explore how atheism actually interacts with cultural and political forces outside of the West, especially in countries where secularism is an act of resistance to religion's entanglement with political power. But the reason I wanted to kind of call this one out is because I'm like, he's not the only one that makes that mistake. I watch well-meaning secular people every day make these same mistakes because ultimately it's human arrogance. Because I tell people that you being a part of the secular community doesn't you being an atheist doesn't make you immune from bad thinking. You know, so like someone lately, I've seen a lot of posts, and you can blame Jimmy about me talking political because I got to talk political tonight. But I've seen a lot of posts about I don't want to see nothing else about people saying that the Democratic Party didn't do this or this. And it's just like the idea is nope, the other people were just that bad. Please don't criticize us. The Democratic Party did everything that they could have possibly done, and they listed every group that the Democratic Party had stood up for. And they said they stood up for these people and they stood up for these people. And they go on and said, so don't tell me what they did wrong. And one person came and just commented and said, it's amazing that in that whole list, nothing about black people, you know? But that's often how it goes. And that's one of the things that I do try to remind people of, to be mindful of themselves is when you're engaging political conversations is that you are not the fucking oracle of all humanity. You know what I'm saying? And so be very careful about trying to act like you know everything and what's best for everybody because this person embarrassingly demonstrated that when they said everybody that they didn't mean black people. This is what this person demonstrated. You know what I'm saying? Because they said, no, they were pro-gay rights, they were pro-trans rights, they were pro-Palestine, they were pro this, and just like not, no black person on there anywhere. Like no pro-black, they were, no, not an issue. We're an afterthought. You know what I'm saying? Now, I'm not saying that person is a racist. I wouldn't do that. That's number one. My definition of racism is a little more reliable than that. But people are often blinded by their own worldview. And I think people need to realize that you are not inclusive by default. Inclusion has to happen by design. And so instead of saying, no, they didn't do anything wrong, how about listen to the people who do think they did something wrong and who are not Trump supporters? But even in the secular community, we've created such a type of polarization that like it's like I'm we'll save that conversation for tonight. But the big point was there are cultural and political blind spots here, you know, which I mean we've known that that's an issue. It's been an issue for a long time. Which this is my problem with humans though. Like, why do we keep making the same fucking mistakes? It's because every group feels like it's immune from making the same type of mistakes. And so it doesn't do anything to keep itself from making the same type of mistakes. You know? Am I venting a little bit? You know? Because like even this, guess who's not a factor in this book at all? black folk, non-white folk, period. You know, but I'm not mad at it, but I am calling it out, and by saying then this couldn't possibly be an accurate representation of any type of atheism because you haven't actually done the work to interrogate the atheist. You've just, in this sense, you've chosen a few atheists who you think are super duper special, and you've chosen them to be the microcosms of all atheism. And at the end of the day, it seems to be really because this author really doesn't like militant atheism. He doesn't like vocal atheism. He doesn't like advocacy atheism. It sounds he wants the type of atheism that doesn't talk about atheism because apparently John Gray is an agnostic posing as an atheist. It's pretty clear. I mean, he creates an entire new word to describe atheism that ultimately just means agnostic. Yeah, I think our dear brother John Gray is dealing with some self hate. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, bruh, if you're an agnostic, it's okay. Just be an agnostic. You know. But I have run into people like this because there are quite a few people in the past who tried to comment under my post and say, well, why are you atheist? Why aren't you just agnostic? And it's like, hey, why are you so fucking childish? Why do I have to be anything that you are? You know what I'm saying? Like, like I don't go to believers and say, why are you a believer? Number one, I already know why. But I have no expectation of anybody to believe like me. I can give you insight into why I approach the world the way that I do. And by far and large, instead of looking to convince other people, I am more so looking for people to partner with, people who already share these ideas so that we can do meaningful work together. The other stuff is not as interesting to me. You know what I'm saying? Um, so no, there's just there are a lot of people who claim to be atheist, and they may be because you can be atheist and immature. You can be atheist and a jackass. You can be atheist and a dumbass. You can be atheist in any type of ass that there is. You can be atheist and an ass. They both start with the same letter. A is for atheist and A is for ass. So you can be an atheist and an ass human. You can be an asinine atheist asshole. You know what I'm saying? And there are a lot of those because atheism isn't a religion. Atheism isn't something you find that sets you free. Atheism is one thing and one thing only, and that is the rejection of belief in in theisms, in deities, in gods. That's it. To try to take that and expand that any more than that is academically dishonest. You know, I can't find any integrity in that. And like I said, I sincerely tried. Like I said, if we were going types of atheists, or the types of the way different ways that people come to atheism, that's the closest I can go with that. But anything else outside of that, you're conflating atheism with who a person is. You know what I'm saying? And again, as I said, this list that he provided wouldn't stand up anywhere else. So I wouldn't. I didn't like this one. And then there was a little bit of. Would you get this with the people in the philosophy range? This elitist type of underpinning. Um, you get it. Well, it's the same type of thing. We find it in philosophy, we find it in metaphysics, and we find it in theology, religion, right? And I do have a sneaky suspicion that eventually we're going to find out that there is a lot of pseudo intelligence underpinning a lot of modern philosophical thought. hmm I mean, think about it. If there's already pseudo intelligence that's already infiltrated the realm of psychology and mental health, why would philosophy be harder to infiltrate? You know, I'll let you think on that. So yeah, his John Gray's Seven Types of Atheism provides a compelling intellectual overview of atheism, but it is marked by critical shortcomings. It reminds me of the cartoon Two Stupid Dogs, and they had the one guy that was big, ugly, and big face, and he'd be like, "Isn't that cute? But it's wrong." That's that's how I feel about um, John Gray's The Seven Types of Atheism. I think it was well received, likely by Christians and agnostics, likely by believers and agnostics who want to feel better about their belief, because that's ultimately what this book does. It villainizes people who are calling out the harms of religion and makes people who share in the delusion feel like they're the safe ones, they're the right ones, and the people who are letting them know that the house is burning, those are the people who are problematic. So, no, I do not find the fact that this book was written kind of tells me a good a bit that I need to know about the author. And I hope he comes up with something better. But thank y'all for hanging out with me today. I did tell y'all it was going to be a short one, and I kept to it. Like, this is the first video in a while that I've kept under an hour. Today's video was definitely going to be longer than that. I decided to move that one till tomorrow because I ended up getting on that call. So remember, catch me on the line tonight. I love to see you there. It's going to be a different type conversation. So we're going to see how that goes. But yeah, thank you all for hanging out with me. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that alert notification bell. Consider joining, supporting, or connecting with this community, channel, or content in any way that makes sense for you. And last but not least, check out the merch and check out the products. And of course, if you're interested in supporting Bridge City Weekend's Raleigh events, information is in the link is in the description below. All right, I love y'all. Until next time, keep rising, stay progressive, and if you can, stay beautiful as a motherfucker. I'll holla.